Hello, my dear students, and welcome to your favorite educational YouTube channel, English Valley Ma'am or Educator Prerna. This is how you can search me on YouTube. So, आज हमारी OTT series by day 54 Know How to Get the Perfect Score का episode 32 है and आज के episode में we are going to be reading a chapter from our main reader, First Flight जो हमारी main reader है उसमें से हम एक chapter पढ़ेंगे which is called as Mijbil the Otter. So we know this is a story about an animal which is an otter, and जो author है or the narrator of the chapter has named this otter as Mijbil. Okay, so let us start with the revision of the chapter. So we know that we're going to understand this chapter through a flow chart. So what is the first incident or how does the story exactly start? Author or the narrator wants to have a pet and decides to keep an otter and not a dog. So instead of having that cliche idea of having a dog or maybe a cat as a pet, the author decides that I am going to keep an animal called the animal otter as my pet. But from where could he procure this animal to be taken as a pet? So the author's friend suggests that he should get it from Tigris marshes. But why? So we are on page number 104 of our textbook. जो बच्चे मैम के वीडियोस रेगुलरली वॉच करते हैं, जो जिन बच्चों ने सब्सक्राइब किया हुआ है मैम के वीडियोस के, दे नो इट बाय नाउ दैट जब भी अगर आप फर्स्ट टाइम भी मैम का ये वीडियो देख रहे हो, so first of all do subscribe to our channel and secondly बेटा जैसे ही आपको वीडियो में in the beginning itself I will tell you which chapter we are going to read, so you should have the textbook handy. जिस रीडर से मेन रीडर या सप्लीमेंट्री रीडर जिस भी रीडर बुक से मैम आपको चैप्टर पढ़ा रही है, make sure you have the textbook handy because I read text from the book itself. इसकी क्या वैल्यू है ये सब बातें आपको in the coming videos you will come to know about it. Okay, all right, so page number 104, second paragraph, the author says, when I casually mention this to a friend, this means that I have a desire to keep an otter as a pet. He says that I better get one in the Tigris marshes, for they were as common as mosquitoes and were often tamed by the Arabs. We were going to Basra to Consulate General to collect and answer our mail from Europe. At the Consulate General, we found that my friend's mail had arrived, but mine had not. So, the author's friend suggests that you get it from Tigris marshes. So, author decided that yes, from this place, I'm going to get an otter. I'm going to buy this otter, which I can keep as a pet. So the author finally gets an otter. Alright, so page number 104. Alright, the third paragraph, he said, 3 days, so I cabled to England, nothing happened. I tried to telephone. And then he says, on the third day, we're reading the same paragraph. On the third day, there was another breakdown. My friend left and I arranged to meet him in a week's time. 5 days later, my mail arrived. I carried it to my bedroom to read, and there was squatting on the floor were 2 Arabs. Beside them lay a sack that squirmed from time to time. They handed me a note from my friend. Here is your otter. So author's friend managed to get an otter for the author. Alright, don't get confused between author and otter. Okay, you know, I sometimes see when students are writing the answer, so they write the author was able to get an author. Okay, so this is a common mistake that a lot of students do, so don't get confused between these kind of tongue twister words. Okay, so finally the author is able to get the otter. Now when he looks at the otter, when author Gavin Maxwell, the author, when he looks at the author, there's a particular kind of description he gives. Alright. So what is this description like? So he says, so page number 104, last paragraph. He says the creature that emerged from the sack on the spacious tiled floor of the council bedroom resembled most like a very small conceived dragon. Then he further describes that all over his body it was coated with symmetrical pointed scales of mud armor, between whose tips were visible a soft velvet-like fur like that of a chocolate brown mole. So he gives a physical appearance of how the otter basically looked like. You can have a look at this picture as well. Alright. So he gives the description of the otter. And then he finally decides to name this otter as Mijbil. And that's why the chapter is named as Mijbil the Otter. Then what happens? So what was Mijbil like initially? So when this otter, Mijbil the otter, when he met the otter for the first time, what was he like and what all did he like to do? So the author has described that in the initial 2 hours, what had happened? So he was neither aloof, all right, then he was neither hostile, he was for first 24 hours, sorry, not 2 hours. So I'm on page number 105, the second paragraph and the third line. For the first 24 hours, Mijbil, he was neither very friendly, he was not very hostile. In fact, he was kind of indifferent also, he was aloof, and he chose to sleep on the floor as far as possible from my bed. So what does this reflect? That Mijbil the otter was not, he did not really feel secure when for the first time he met the author. Alright. Then he said, second night he came to my bed. In the small hours he remained asleep in the crook of my knees. And then he goes on to say, I made a body belt for him and took him on a leap to the bathroom. Where for now this is an important part. Half an hour he went wild with joy of water. So if you have read this chapter very carefully when ma'am was teaching you in the school, and if you have revised it also by yourself, we know that otter, Mijbil the otter, really liked playing with water and with marbles. And what is the other incident wherein we know that he liked playing with water? So we come to the next page, page number 106. The first paragraph, author says, 2 days later, Mijbil escaped from my bedroom as I entered it and he moved towards the bathroom. By the time I got there, he was up on the end of the bathtub and fumbling at the chromium taps with his paws. So he was trying to open those taps, alright, and he was also able to do that to a large extent because he was able to get a trickle of water, alright. Then very soon Mitch would follow me without a lead and come to me when I called his name. So now Otter, whom the author named as Mijbil, became friends. Alright, and now whenever, so all those who have a pet at home, they can actually relate to this line that the moment you call your pet with its name, it comes running to you. So this is exactly what was happening with the author now. And then it also said that he liked playing with marbles. He spent hours shuffling a rubber ball around the room like a four-footed soccer player. And then marbles were Mitch's favorite toys for the pastime. He would lie on his back, rolling 2 or more of them up and down his wide, flat belly, without ever dropping one on the floor. So, why I'm talking about these two incidents, why I've read this from the textbook, because you might get a short answer question about what all did Mijbil like doing. Maybe not a direct question, but yes, there can be a question based on what were the pastimes of Mijbil. Alright. Now we come to the interesting part of the story wherein the author now wanted to take Mijbil to England. So how was Mijbil's journey to England? So we are on page number 107. So basically what had happened, So the author said that I dreaded the prospect of transporting Midge to England from Basra. Alright, the British airline to London would not fly animals. So what did the author do? He first booked a flight to Paris and then he decided that I'm going to take him to London. The airline insisted, so the Paris airline said that yes, you can have a pet on board, but it should be packed or into a box not more than 18 square inches square to be carried on the floor at my feet. And so he said that I'd made this box, but what happened? When I returned, there was an appalling spectacle. There was complete silence from the box, but from its air holes and chinks around the lid, blood had trickled and dried. I whipped up the lock and tore open the lid, and Midge, exhausted and blood spattered, whimpered and caught at my leg. So when the author decided to put Mijbil into a box so that Mijbil would become used to it, would become accustomed to staying in that box for a few number of hours because they had to fly in an airplane. Mijbil felt suffocated, so he tried his best to come out of that box, and in this effort, he had got certain wounds because the box basically it had created certain scars on his body. All right. Then he said that I put the miserable Mijbil back into the box, holding down the lid with my hand. I sat in the back of the car with the box beside me as the driver tore through the streets of Basra and the aircraft was waiting to take off. Luckily, the seat booked for me was absolutely on the front row. So the author, he put Mijbil under his seat. So, of course, I'm sure all of us have traveled by airline, so we know that when you get the very first seat in the very first row of an airline, you automatically get some extra leg space. So the author was kind of delighted with it. Then he said that, so he's talking to the air hostess. We are on page number 107. The last four lines. She suggested that I might prefer to have my pet on my knee. She refers to the air hostess. And I could have kissed her hand in the depth of my gratitude, but not knowing otters, I was quite unprepared for what followed. So the author says that I did not know what's going to come next when I'm going to put this Mijbil under the knees. So Mijbil was out in a flash. Now this incident is also important from the exam point of view. So he disappeared at high speed and there were squawks and shrieks. A woman stood up on her seat screaming out, "A rat! A rat!" So now understand, in this particular incident, we also come to know that how otter as an animal was unidentifiable to many people. So people started calling it a rat. Then finally, of course, the author was able to find it, but the air hostess, in her most charming smile, said it would be better if you resumed your seat and I will find the animal and bring it to you. So the author, he returned to his seat and he says, I was craning my neck trying to follow the hunt when suddenly I heard from my feet a distressed chitter of recognition and welcome, and Midge bounded onto my knee and began to nuzzle my face and my neck. So finally, Mijbil was basically, where was Mijbil? He had returned back under the author's seat itself. Alright. So this was Mijbil's journey to England. Now what happens when Mijbil finally reaches London? What exactly happened at that point of time? So we are on page number 109. So the author says Mijbil and I returned in London for nearly a month. And what would Mijbil do? He would play for hours with toys, with ping pong balls, marbles, all these. And then he said that a suitcase that had taken to Iraq had become damaged on the journey home, so that the lid, when closed, remained as a slope for one end to the other. So Mijbil would even play with it. Outside the house, Page number 109, second paragraph we are reading. Outside the house, I exercised him on a lead precisely as if it had been a dog. So, and Mijbil quickly developed certain compulsive habits on these walks. Alright. Then he says that opposite to my flat was a single storied primary school along whose frontage ran a low wall some 2 feet high. On his way home, but never on his way out, Mitchell would tuck me to this wall, jump on it, and gallop to the full length of its 30 yards to the hopeless distraction both of pupils and of staff within. All right. Now, how did the people of London react when they saw Mijbil the Otter? So, remember that lady on the airplane called Otter as a rat. So, he says, Londoners, so we are on page number 110. Londoners should not recognize an otter, but a variety of guesses to what this animal could be. So, otters belong to a comparatively small group of animals, and so which is shared by badger. So their appearance look like a badger, a mongoose, a weasel, all those. All right. So some would call it a squirrel. Some would call say, is that a walrus? Is that a baby walrus? Is that a beaver? So most of the people in London could not recognize that this was actually an otter. All right. Then he talks about the question so he says, which I awarded the highest. So he talks about when a laborer was digging the hole and he put his hand on his back like this. And what did this laborer say? He said, what is that supposed to be? Okay. So how beautifully the author has described his entire journey, his entire experience with its pet otter, which it named as Mijbil. Alright. And there has been a long answer question related to this chapter and also the poem Tiger in the Zoo. So all those who have subscribed to our channel can surely watch that video, and I can also put the link of that particular video in the comment section below. And the question in this question, they have related these two chapters, and a very interesting question has been asked. Okay, so this is about the chapter, and now it's time to turn the board because we are going to understand the important characters from the story. All right, so we have turned the board. Okay, so if I talk about important characters from the story, we know that there are two main characters. Of course, you have Mijbil the Otter, who's about whom the story is right, and we have the author himself. So Mijbil, of course, he is very notorious, correct? Then what else? He likes to explore its surroundings, right? Anything else that comes to your mind? He is, you can say he loves water. He loves aspects of nature. And talking about author, simple. He is an animal lover. Alright. How do we know that? What incidents? So, जिन बच्चों ने मैम की वीडियोस पहले देखे हैं अबाउट कैरेक्टर स्केच कि कैरेक्टर स्केच बेस्ड क्वेश्चन में आपको क्या करना होता है, अगर मैंने कहा दैट दिस पर्सन इज एन एनिमल लवर, I need to quote incidents from the chapter. So the incident that we first, that he wanted to have a pet, that means he was an animal lover. Second, his how desperate he was, how much excited he was to get the otter as a pet. That's the second incident. Third incident, how he let otter behave in a particular way it wanted to. It did not bind itself on the otter that now you're my pet and I will make you do the things I want them to be done. The fourth incident, the kind of effort he makes to carry his otter, to carry Mijbil to England. Alright, so always remember, whenever you're answering a character sketch based question, if you quote a quality, you need to explain the incidents from the story. So I'm sure all of you have understood this chapter pretty well. We are going to be meeting in the next episode. Till then, please do like, share and subscribe to English Wali ma'am. And of course, like all of you generally say कि मैम आपको हम YouTube पे किसी को बोलना हो मैम को ढूंढो तो कैसे ढूंढेंगे? You need to type on YouTube educator प्रेरणा PRERNA. बहुत सिंपल है मैम के नेम की स्पेलिंग. Okay, educator प्रेरणा. This is how you can find me on YouTube. I will see you all in the next episode. Till then,